This is Metrosource Minis, the official podcast of Metrosource Magazine and home of short-form interviews with your favorite personalities from the LGBTQ world and beyond. Quick, fun, and informative. It's Metrosource on the go. Out and proud since 1990. Well, hello. This is Metrosource Minis. I'm your host, Alexander Rodriguez, and today we are celebrating hot fashion from day to night with one of fashion's leaders in menswear. With over 15 years of experience in the fashion industry, Puerto Rican-born Mass Luciano studied at the Fashion Institute of Design in Los Angeles and has worked with international brands including Guess, Rock & Republic by Victoria Beckham, and Lee Jeans. His rise to fame began in 2015 when he competed for and won the titles of initially Mr. Gay Hong Kong and ultimately Mr. Gay World. And this accomplishment inspired him to launch his energetic namesake streetwear label, MASSBRANDED. MASSBRANDED just launched its new collaboration with the world-renowned Israeli party producer, actor, and model, Eliad Cohen, on a brand new athleisure capsule collection for the urban man on the go. MASSBRANDED for Eliad launched 7 new styles that can be worn to and from the gym, for casual nights out, while traveling, and of course on the dance floor. An inspiration for the collection was drawn from military backgrounds. Yes, sir. Please welcome Mass Luciano. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, trying to survive quarantine. And so excited about your fashion line. I just poured through all of the designs online on the MASSBRANDED website. I want to buy everything just so I can look hot on the way to the mailbox, you know?
That's good. Yeah, I think you should always look hot no matter what you're doing. It's how you feel, right, inside. And hopefully the clothes I design just kind of shows off a little bit of your personality.
For sure. I want to talk about you growing up. You grew up as a military kid, so you were moving from place to place. Was it hard to make friends growing up?
I think when I was younger, like a kid, like I was born basically as an army brat. So I was always used to and grew up moving around every 3 to 5 years. So it kind of forces you to make new friends really quickly. What's great about being an army brat is that you're in the same situation with everybody else who's in school with you. So I lived on the military bases, so most families would move around and then everyone knows or quickly knows that you have to make new friends. So you don't really have the same friends throughout your whole childhood. So that was quite easy. And it helped with, I guess, as an adult, I also move around a lot. And working and traveling a lot and making new friends is something that I feel like is a positive trait that I learned as a kid.
For sure. Well, and you're just so friendly, like so enchanting. What was it like coming out to a military family? You know, have we all these preconceived notions as to very conservative, very militant? Share with us your coming out story.
Well, I came out quite early at the age of 18. It's early for me. You know, I'm 40 years old now, so I'm not a spring chicken. And back in the day, 18 was very, very young. I know all the kids now are coming out when they're like in 12, you know, so it's good for them. You know, I admire that. But for me, you know, my family's always installed like really, really good values of being honest and truthful. So the moment I came to terms with my own sexuality, I just told my parents. I didn't feel like I needed to hide it from them. They weren't too thrilled with the idea at first. Of course, not because of they didn't love me or anything, but maybe because they were afraid of we lived in Puerto Rico at the time, which is a very conservative Christian and Catholic country. So I think there was more of like the fear of rejection. And I think that me being openly gay and living my true life, after a few years, they saw oh, you know, I'm still the same person and I haven't had that hasn't stopped me in pursuing my dreams. So they are one of my biggest supporters. They support me in everything I do. And I'm very lucky.
Well, that is good to hear. And, you know, I think just like you said, I came out super late. I came out when I was like a sophomore in college. And now, like you said, everybody is coming out younger and we're having these shared coming out stories from all ages. And so I think the environment now is a little bit more welcoming, or at least the language is there a little bit better than I think when you and I came out. to even discuss with families. I love your fashion. It's so sleek and sexy. Of course, with those military kind of strong lines and color blocking, with some sexy mesh and tight fits. When did you first get the fashion bug?
Well, I remember growing up, like seeing my mom's fashion magazines in Puerto Rico. She had Vanidades and Hola, which are all Spanish publications. We didn't have Vogue at home, but they carried the same images. So I think in the early 90s, just seeing Gianni Versace's runways, it was the beginning of supermodel being born, we had Cindy Crawford and Naomi and all these amazing women wearing these striking dresses. And Versace was really the first kind of designer that really inspired me. I started, I was 12 years old at the time. So I started sketching a lot of what I would see in the magazines. I kept a little notebook that was my hobby, just to draw and sketch dresses. And around the age of 15 and 16, that's what I decided I wanted to be a fashion designer. My parents basically told me, oh, you should probably study business first before you study fashion. And I did that. I got a scholarship in Puerto Rico to study at the University of Puerto Rico in business school. So I went to business school. But 3 years into that, I'm like, this isn't for me. So I moved to LA and studied at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. And that's where I studied fashion and my career started. So follow my dreams, I guess.
Yeah, but having that, even the few years of business school that you took, I'm sure it's really helped you handle both sides. I know a lot of creative people that only know how to work on their skill, and the business aspect in the fashion industry, I can imagine, is a whole different ballgame, and you have to excel at both in order to have a successful brand, a successful line. Yeah, but at FIDM,
I agree.
At FIDM, I have to know. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that everything happens for a reason. Like if I haven't went to business school, even one of my favorite classes was business communication and how to communicate effectively, and not just written, but also like when you communicate with others. And I think that as a designer, that really, really helps a lot with how to communicate your ideas, your concepts of what's in your head, and putting it on so that other people could interpret it, not just by a sketch, because you do have to have a technical element to it. And life is a business, just paying your bills on time and managing your finances, and those are things that I think everybody should go to business school, because there are tools there that you learn. So I'm not complaining about that.
Oh, I just want to marry rich. Like that's my business plan. If I had to ask, I love FIDM in Los Angeles. What classes did you excel at, and what classes were you just like this? I'm terrible at this.
I really liked fashion draping. I think just because the creative aspect of draping fabric on a form is really fun for me. If you use your hands, you're using pins, and you're kind of molding something. It's kind of like sculpture. So I really, really enjoyed that class. Sketching, like fashion illustration and sketching, was a fun class as well too. I had a really, really hard teacher named Nancy Riegelman, who's famous at FIDM. The books that she wrote is what a lot of schools use to show fashion illustration. And she was really, really tough. But I think that one thing about FIDM is that they prepare you for the industry as a whole. And the industry is not there to like walk you through it and hold your hand. It is quite hard you have tough deadlines. You have to follow instructions of a creative director or design director. So you're basically giving strict directions of what to do. And you have to interpret it in a way that fulfills their needs. And I think that unlike other schools, which is more focused on creativity, FIDM really, really gives you the tools to work in the fashion industry. And I think that had a lot to do with landing my first job straight out of school for Guess Jeans in LA.
Now, let's talk about working for a large company like Guess, and I know you work for Rock & Republic. What things did you learn working for such a big company that you still maintain, that you still draw from in running your own fashion line?
I think it's one of the most important thing probably is don't do anything random. A collection has to be cohesive. When there's a line, everything has to kind of belong and have its purpose. So if you're just designing something just because you feel like it, and one style that doesn't really look like or belong with the rest of the collection, it just doesn't have the right image, doesn't carry what you're trying to communicate. So I think that's something that I constantly tell myself when remind myself when I'm sketching and designing a new collection, is how to edit your work to make sure that every piece in the collection belongs there, that it's part of the same family and the same story. But also what I learned at Guess was that there's a lot of different components to make the line come out. It's not just from initial sketch to selecting the fabrics to doing the fittings, but then you have pre-production, and Guess is such a huge team. So you have different departments that all work cohesively to make sure that from the moment you approve a sample, the whole production process to it getting to the stores in front of the buyers and all of that. So that really helped me throughout my career, because I had worked a lot with startup brands who didn't have that structure. So I kind of learned how to do a little bit of everything, which helped me with my own brand.
Okay, let's talk about Mass Branded for Iliad Cohen. Hot, hot, hot. Of course, everybody loves Iliad, right? From his parties to his modeling to his social media, like woof, right? I don't know whether to buy the clothes or just stare at your website pictures. Like
you can do both. You can do both.
And I have done both. Now, how did you meet Iliad?
Well, Elliot walked into Universal Body, a boutique in LA that carries Mass Branded, and he really, really liked the clothes. And the owner of the store, shout out to Scott if he's listening and watching, he put us in contact. Yeah, so he introduced us, and we just started chatting just casually. He posted a few things of him wearing our clothes, and I'm like, hey, why not like do something together? Like, would you like to collaborate? He has the right look that we like, and the attitude too. Something that really stood out for me about Iliad Cohen. I've been a fan of his since his early videos popped up on YouTube for Arissa, the parties in Tel Aviv. And I really like his really strong, masculine look, but he wasn't taking it too seriously. He was performing with the drag queens. He was doing silly things, and I kind of like that. You know, especially like when I lived in LA in the early 2000s, it was, you know, like everybody, like the ideal of masculinity is everyone had to be big and macho, and everybody's a top, you know. And it's like it's so annoying that was the only way that. Yeah, I know it's so not true, especially not now. You know, try to find a top in LA. I'm sure it's like, trust me.
We are a rare breed. It's like Indiana Jones and the Lost Top.
Exactly. You know, so just kind of like seeing Elliot just personify like a more fun version of masculinity is something that really drew me to him. And I try to do that also with what we do with Mass Branded. Like I try to do sexy streetwear. I like to mix mesh and make it provocative, but still wearable. So it's a very fine line as into, okay, what's between being, I wouldn't say classy, but structured and versatile, and versus being just slutty, which is something that I try not to do.
Well, and I actually do have it, like I have it written down as classy because it is provocative. I love the mesh, but there's a level of sophistication to it. It's not just, you know, oh, I'm just showing parts of my body. It really has a certain form and a certain theme that is so classy and elevated to it while it's celebrating the body. Now, how did you kind of collaborate? Because I know he had kind of input as well as developing this fashion line. How did you guys work creatively together to come to this Mass Branded line?
Well, we've had a lot of conversations as to what the collection should look like, and he really wanted it to have an athleisure vibe to it, which is a little different from what we do in Mass Branded. So the fabrications were a lot more softer, things that you can wear to and from the gym. There's hardly any mesh in it too, so it's a different different from what we normally do. But then we started thinking about what are the similarities between him and me, and it's our army background. Like he served in the Israeli armed forces for 3 years, and me, of course, being in growing up in the military. So I'm like, okay, well, why don't we do, since it's an athleisure collection, why don't we do base it off of like off-duty uniforms or physical training fatigues that are used in the military, but do our interpretation of it by making it sporty and sexy as well too. So I think that after we kind of agreed on what the collection should look like, I sent him a few sketches. We had a few back and forth, and once the samples were ready, I flew to London to meet him in January, and we kind of did a fitting. He made some really good adjustments, like making sure that all the zippers have all the pockets have zippers, so when people are at the party or in the club, they don't lose their belongings and things like that. And we finally were able to launch a couple weeks ago. So it's been over a year in the making, and we're both really happy with the outcome.
Well, it's definitely beautiful, and it's something that's so different on the market that I think appeals to a lot of different genre types. You know, it's not just one set. Like, oh, okay, it's these kind of people that will like this clothes. I think it's very universal while being sexy as well. Now, you are currently living in Hong Kong. I have to know, what is Hong Kong like right now during COVID?
Well, right now, it's slightly in a semi-lockdown, not really a lockdown. We had, like, it's so weird. Like, I'm sure it's like this everywhere. It's just a weird sensation. 3 weeks ago, we had 0 cases, and we were at 0 cases for like 3 weeks. So everyone was like super happy and going out, and everything was back to normal. And then all of a sudden, all of the infections started to spike up. And now the government has closed down all restaurants, all gyms. The gym, I was going to the gym until 2 weeks ago. So imagine how happy I was. I'm like, oh, COVID doesn't really affect us. And now everything's like back to 0 again, where everything's closed. It's compulsory to wear a mask here. So if you don't wear a mask, you will get fined. Even if you're working out or jogging out in this heat. And trust me, it's really hot here at the moment. Everyone complies with it and does wear a mask. People here in Hong Kong are very considerate of it. Just feel like a community. So everybody does their part to try to end this virus. So although it's a bit hectic, I do feel safe here, and that's really important.
Well, I think we need to take a few lessons. We didn't even get to 0 cases. We're already back under lockdown. Everything's closed again, and everybody's fighting on wearing a mask. It's like, what's the big deal? Now, what is the LGBT culture like in Hong Kong on a regular basis, like pre-COVID? Explain to me what that culture is like.
Well, it's very international community. So there's different aspects of it. I think for the Westerners or people there's a lot of foreigners who live in Hong Kong, including myself. It's quite bustling. There's been a few new bars and clubs that have opened that are LGBT run and operated. So there's always fun venues to go, and people here like to mix it up. So we don't just go to the gay venues. I'm sure it's like that in most places as well too. But in Hong Kong, like everyone goes out to, no matter if it's a gay venue or a non-gay venue. So that's fun. We do a lot of outdoor activities. Like Hong Kong is, a lot of people don't know, it's an island, and we have lots of beaches and fun hikes and trails to do. So there's a big outdoor gay community that does hikes and trails and sports as well too. So it's quite diverse. So I kind of like that. And it's although it is a big international community, it feels kind of small. It's a small island, so everyone kind of gets to know each other really quickly. And every now and then when someone new appears on the scene, it's like, oh, that's fun. And everyone
fresh meat.
Fresh meat. But everyone becomes friends quite quickly here too, which is something I like.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you have such a friendly personality. Now, what are you wearing around the house on a regular basis? Like, if you're not going anywhere, no one's going to see you. Be honest. What are you wearing?
I wear the tiniest shorts. Like they're basically underwear. I'm not wearing them now. No. It's funny. I walk around the house with them, and my boyfriend's always pulling them up, like trying to like ride them up my crack.
Yeah.
Because he gets a giggle out of it. And I'm like, well, I would not be caught dead in public wearing those.
Oh God, I wish I was one of your neighbors. Okay. All right, we're gonna.
We have like I live in like an apartment that's all glass around, so a good thing that it's mostly business buildings around that no one can look in. But I'm sure the people in the business, like the office building next door, have a little giggle every now and then.
I can just imagine like their conference room, like their business meetings. It's like, what?
Well, if they're looking, you got to put on the show, right?
There you go. Okay, we're going to do a little rapid fire. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Worst fashion trend that you fell victim to?
Ooh, I think like baggy jeans.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah.
A celebrity that you would kill to design for?
Ricky Martin. Puerto Rican, have to choose him.
Hey, me familiar. What do you think has been the biggest mistake you've made in your career?
I think not following my gut, or not being true to myself, when I think that's the biggest mistake. When someone a lot of people have opinions about what you should do, and sometimes you just have to kind of block that out and just trust yourself. So I find that works for me.
Okay. Your favorite cheat food in Hong Kong?
Ooh, Shanghainese dumplings. They're so good.
Girl, I've never even seen one, and I want one.
They're like a pastry, and they're pan fried, and on the inside they have like a soup that when you bite into it, it squirts. So you have to be a little bit too careful because sometimes it's very, very hot and you can burn yourself. But it's so delicious.
Oh, I could make a dirty joke, but I don't even have to. Okay. And the biggest thing you miss about living in Los Angeles?
The sunsets. I'm sorry. The sky in LA there's no other sky like that. So I do miss, like, I lived in West Hollywood for so many years. So on Santa Monica Boulevard, when the sun is setting, it's amazing. So I do miss that.
All right. It has been such a pleasure. You're so adorable. Your clothes are so sexy. Tell everybody where they can find you, follow you, and where we can buy Mass Branded for Elliot Cohen.
Well, you can go to MASSBRANDED.com. We're exclusively selling the collection there. You can follow the brand at Mass_branded at Instagram, and you can follow me at Mass Luciano on Instagram as well too.
And I highly recommend following him on Instagram. Woo! Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. That has been our episode. I'm your host and lead writer for MetroSource Magazine, Alexander Rodriguez. You can follow me on Instagram at AlexanderIsOnAir, and you can binge listen to all of our episodes featuring your favorite celebrities from our issues and online articles at metrosource.com. Until next time, stay true and do you, boo. Okay. That has been another MetroSource Mini. Like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and check out the latest issue of MetroSource Magazine on newsstands or online at metrosource.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram at MetroSource, and on Twitter at MetroSourceMag. Until next time, stay fabulous.